All right, well, it looks like it is just about 9 o'clock Mountain Time, so let's get started. All right, well, welcome everyone. This is DES 114, Print Production and Color Theory, or should I say, I guess, Color Theory and Print Production. And we are in our second week. This is our live session recording, and today is Tuesday, May 21st. So hopefully everybody is having a good week thus far, whatever daytime week or daytime part of the week it might be. Yeah. All right, well, let's jump right into things since we have a lot to cover today. You can see here is our discussion, or I'm sorry, our agenda of where we're going to be headed. So we're going to begin with a discussion of the discussion. We're going to take a look at kind of how to go about doing discussion, as well as some good things to keep in mind, and also ways to properly attach images to discussion so that we don't run into issues with that. All right, so once we do that, we're going to move on to a discussion of the assignment. As usual, we're going to talk about kind of the different parts of the assignment. And then we're also going to do a demo together so you can see an example of kind of how to step through the process. And then we're going to end this session with covering the assessments. And we're going to talk about, again, how to think about the assessment, some tips and tricks for designing posters, and I'll be showing you too some examples of kind of what you might do for this. Just to kind of get your ideas started. All right, so as usual, we do have some learning objectives that are going to be orienting us this week. So they are first, differentiate between spot, Pantone, RGB, and CMYK color models. Next, identify and apply the correct use of swatches and color libraries. So that's going to be directly with the assignment for this week. Number 3, discuss the role color plays in the big 4 design principles. So contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. Number 4, analyze how color is used to create consistency in a print campaign. And number 5, identify and apply correct resolution for final print output. So as we said last week, if you're kind of wondering what it is that we're going to go over, what it is you can expect to learn this week, the learning objectives are a really good spot to check out and kind of a good space to begin in, because they do kind of outline, you know, the little dots on the map that hopefully by the end of the week, you should feel fairly confident understanding, talking about, kind of applying that sort of thing. All right, so let's jump right into discussion. Oops. Wow, it's strange. I just suddenly heard myself, not sure why, but that's okay. Pull up the classroom and get into things. So just kind of one note about discussion. I did, just let me stop sharing for 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I had to reconfigure some things. I did finish grading everything from week 1. And overall, you guys are doing wonderful in discussion. Lots of interesting research and ideas and such. But one thing I would kind of challenge you about doing is responding to other people. So part of your discussion grade is you actually writing a response to somebody else, well, to 2 somebody else's. And that is like 15 points of your grade. So it doesn't seem like a lot. Kind of 15 points is, you know, not a huge number, but it is kind of something that does add up. So if you didn't respond to others in week 1, or that was something that kind of got away from you, just make sure that you are doing that in the future. because if you consistently don't do that every week, I mean, that's like 60 points that you're basically going to miss out on. So it does tend to add up in ways that get a lot bigger than you might have initially anticipated. So, you know, if you didn't make time for that last week, or life got busy, or you forgot, or whatever, just make sure that this week you're kind of just carving out, you know, 10 minutes twice is kind of all it should take. You just need to find somebody in the discussion threads, preferably somebody that maybe other people haven't responded to, and then just kind of see what it is that they're talking about. Note if you agree, if you disagree, if you agree, why, you know, if you disagree, why. So just kind of do some things to create that conversation, as opposed to just, you know, putting your stuff there and then not entering discussion anymore. So just kind of a high level thing to kind of make sure that you can get all the points possible, and also that we really are doing everything to turn this kind of more into, you know, an interesting dialogue, as opposed to being just, you know, a one-way kind of discussion. Okay, so what is discussion this week, you may ask? So basically we're going to look at the big four design principles. So again, contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. And we're going to talk specifically about how those relate to color usage. And you guys are going to find images where those kind of are showing up, submit them, and then kind of do a little written overview for that. Okay, so what you're going to use is this website. So you can click on it, and just as kind of an overview, we're gonna talk about the mechanics of discussion, and then we're gonna go back and unpack the design principles just a little bit, just to make sure everybody's, you know, fairly clear on language and usage and such. Okay, so you're gonna visit this website. It says scroll down, there are 60 wonderful examples. There are many, 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 so lots of good stuff. Okay, so what you're going to do is find an example, grab the example, and then place the example in your discussion, and then write your little blurb about what is going on, why you chose it, what's standing out to you, that sort of thing. Okay, so one thing that's going to be, this is going to sound very strange, but something to make sure that you do the correct way is that you attach the image into your post in the correct manner. So you can see if you don't do that, it turns into a sad house. I have no idea why this happens. Canvas doesn't know why this happens. I don't know if it's something in the website. I don't know what the deal is, but this is something that started happening, I think, last mod or the mod before, and it's odd and strange, but it's not it's not inevitable, because a lot of students are able to get the right link up. So we're just going to do a quick overview about how to get the image hopefully into the discussion without it turning into the sad house. And if you're like, wait, what? So it's very odd. But so this is an example. This is not what the student was discussing. You know, this is not the poster. This is just some sort of glitch, bug, error that tends to show up periodically, just if you're not doing something in the correct order. Okay, so what is the correct order? How can you make sure this does not happen to you? So you're gonna get your, let's say we're gonna pick this one. So you can get your picture a variety of different ways. So basically you need to take the picture from the website to your desktop, and then from your desktop upload it to Canvas. So how you do that, you could take a screenshot. So if you are on a Mac, hold down Shift, hold down Command, hold down 4, and then just draw a box around your poster. So that's one way to do it. So hold down Shift, hold down Command, hold down 4, draw a box, take a screenshot. Another way is to hold down Control and click and do download linked file. and it will download the file into your downloads folder so you can then see it. And oh, that didn't work. Oops. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry about that. Save image to downloads. That would probably be the more correct way to do it. So save your image to downloads. That's another way. Or if you want to, if this is more your thing that you prefer, just minimize your window slightly so you can see your desktop and your website. Click on the image, click and drag, and just let go. And it will deposit the image onto your desktop. So it doesn't really matter how you get your image off of the internet onto your desktop, but you just have to do it in some way so that it shows up there. Okay, so once you have your image downloaded, next thing we're going to do is come back to Canvas, and this is where it gets a little bit kind of tricky and convoluted, so just stick with me because it's very easy, but it just has a lot of steps, so it feels kind of tricky. So we're going to come here to, you click on, your own face or your own avatar or whatever to open up your account, and then come to Files. So Account, Files, and then come here to Upload. And then you're going to find the picture of the thing that you got off of the internet. So if you took a screenshot, it's going to be on your desktop. If you saved it to your downloads, it's going to be in your downloads folder. So you just have to kind of navigate around to wherever it was that you put it. And then when you see it, just click Choose. And you'll see it's going to do this little upload deal. And then once it uploads, just make sure you can see it. So here's mine. I can't see the preview of it yet, but we're going to trust that it's there. Sometimes it just takes a little while to see the preview show up. Okay, so once you did that, so again, Account, Files, Upload, very important. You're going to come back to your class. So I'm going in through the dashboard. Come to Discussion. Okay, hit Reply. And then click Embed Image. Okay, next thing we're going to go to Canvas. We're going to go to My Files. And we're going to scroll all the way down to find what it was that we took a picture of. Screenshot. Looks good. And we're going to click Update. Then we're going to cross our fingers. Okay, so it looks like it's showing up here. So far, so good. And then, type your response, copy, paste your response, however you want to get it there. And then just click Post. And once again, cross our fingers. And then see how it's going to show up. So, and if it shows up as an actual thing, fabulous. If it shows up as a sad house, I would say just delete your post and give it one more shot. And if you just absolutely cannot get the image to show, if you're like stuck in sad house world, because very honestly, I have no idea why it works, what the glitch is that sometimes causes it to happen. But if that does happen, you can just you can just attach a URL to the poster that you're pointing to. So, just click on the poster, copy this, and then, just do let me edit this so I can add it. Just do a paste in here, and you can say like, see poster here or something, and then it will have that URL so people could click on it if they wanted to, or you could upload it or you could attach it, so put it as an attachment in your discussion. So basically just like getting the image from the internet to your desktop, there's about 7 different ways you could do that. Same deal here with the with how you get the image in here. So hopefully that was not more confusing, but hopefully that gives you guys kind of a range of options to just figure out what would work best for you. So like I said, not sure why the sad house happens. It does periodically. Don't let the sad house happen to you, but if you are struggling with it genuinely, please contact me and we can walk through together, or you can try one of the other alternate pathways to get us connected to the image that you're describing. Okay, so good, hopefully. All right, so let's go back and just do a little overview on these design principles themselves to just kind of help give you guys maybe a refresher in language that you could use when you are talking about how the design principles are showing up within each of the posters, particularly as it applies to color. Okay, so kind of pop quiz time. When I say design principles, what kind of pops into your heads? Are there some words? Are there some ideas? Are there some concepts? Is there maybe a really catchy acronym that pops into your head? That's certainly what comes into mind. But yeah, so what's kind of your design principles base, your foundation? So if you're here, you can feel free to type anything you'd like into the chat box. If you're not here, if you're watching via video, you still have a brain, so you can think. So think to yourself, what's a design principle? Do I remember one? She's talking about this crazy acronym, this word that's describing something. What could she possibly mean? So what do you think? Okay, so it looks like we have quite a few people here, which is fabulous. And we have a whole bunch of interesting words that have just popped into the chat box, defining what that acronym might be. So you can see here it is, CRAP, which stands for contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And for real, guys, isn't it just so easy that there's a word that helps you easily remember and connect to these principles. And it also, if you're anything like me, makes you giggle every time you see it because you're like, ha ha ha, who knew? Yet I think we all kind of did, but yeah, it's good stuff. Okay, so the design principles are indeed contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. So we're going to take just a little brief tour into the intersection of the big four design principles as well as color. So what we're going to look at in particular is how color and the design principles kind of join together, what that looks like when they kind of overlap. Okay, so let's see what's going to happen. Okay, so first principle we're going to talk about is contrast. So the principle of contrast is really kind of an attention grabber. You really have a high wow factor when you have high amounts of contrast in something. And where it becomes most obvious in the use of color is when you have very high contrasting colors. So here's an example of a poster. And you can see here that we have lots of orange, lots of this kind of blue-green, and that in itself is really kind of drawing your eye into the poster, kind of making you want to look. Okay, so refresh time from week 1. As you look at this poster with the blue, with the orange, does anyone have any guesses as to what color relationship might be being shown here amongst these colors? So again, if you're here, you can type it in the chat box. If you are watching via video, again, you can still think about it. So which of the color relationships that we defined in week 1 may be present in this poster itself? So what do you guys think? Okay, so we have lots of complementary. Yes, exactly. Complementary colors have extremely high contrast because they are so different from one another. And so if you want a poster to have high contrast, using two complementary colors is kind of the way to go, because the colors themselves have so much tension in between one another. So, and look at that. Week 1, week 2, there's actually a connection. Who knew? Okay, so next design principle is repetition. The key phrase for repetition is to really repeat elements. Repetition brings a sense of familiarity to a project or to a visual piece, and it also tends to create patterns. So many of you, when you were working on your assessment last week, were playing a lot with repetition by repeating shapes, by repeating colors, by just kind of having a rhythm to what you were designing. Okay, so here's an example of repetition. You can see that this poster has these repeated light bulb shapes, and in addition, they have the repeated colors. So this feels like a very kind of cohesive, unified image, but use your imagination and imagine if every one of these light bulbs was a different color. So it would be a very fun image, no doubt, but it would also probably be a lot more visually kind of like jarring, a little bit more visually chaotic, just because there would be so much going on all at once with, you know, all these different rainbow colors and that sort of thing. So interesting to consider and interesting to think about. Okay, so actually, no, we're not gonna pop quiz quite yet, but we are going to again about some different. Well, actually, we will for this. Does anybody see a color relationship in here that we also defined last week? It's potentially not one of the more obvious ones, but if you look at black, gray, yellow, light yellow, does anyone have a guess as to what color relationship might be present within this poster? And again, if you're here, type it in. If you're if you're joining us in a virtual video sense, think to yourself, see if you can, you know, kind of quiz yourself as to what the relationship might be. And again, it's super important to kind of carry over things you've learned from one week to the next, because as you do that kind of review, as you challenge yourself, it really helps kind of create those pathways for knowledge to be created. So you have a way better chance of remembering something, because as you probably can relate to, 4 weeks in a mod is really quick, and it's very easy to learn things quickly, and then it's equally easy to just forget them all. So we want to minimize that if possible. Okay, so it looks like we have monochromatic, not too sure, and shade showing up. Yes, and this would actually be a monochromatic color relationship. In theory, it could be. I don't know if it's a fully true one, but it certainly looks like that to me. So when you have a monochromatic color scheme, what two colors do you mix with your base color to get all of the different shades or tints or tones? You guys remember that? And this is further pop quizzing time. What two colors do you mix with your initial color to get your full spectrum of stuff? Well, your full spectrum of a single tints, tones, and shades of a color. All right, looks like white and black. Yes, exactly. So monochromatic, one color, but using black and white to get all the different kind of shades of that color. Okay, so next design principle is alignment. So alignment is used to create a visual roadmap in your image. When you have alignment within a piece, you really want to line up your elements. And by creating this lined up roadmap of sorts, you really help to guide your viewer through the piece and kind of give them a good kind of idea of how they should make their way around what it is that you've designed. Okay, so here's an example again. And you can see that, excuse me, you can see that the alignment is really showing up in particular right here. So we have the moon, and then we have, woo, this kind of single beam of light that is bouncing your eye into the cabin. And what's very interesting here, so this is probably the most obvious because we have a color shift happening with the background. But what's interesting here too is compositionally, you can see the house is kind of lined up with this fence post. The fence post is lined up with this other fence post. This is kind of, you know, lined up here. This kind of leads your eye to the tree. The tree kind of leads your eye back to the house. So everything has this kind of connection to something else within the poster. And because there's kind of that interior harmony amongst elements, it really produces a very logical and kind of easy to follow piece that doesn't feel confusing, that feels like it just has a good connection overall to everything that's involved. So it feels very inclusive in the design. Okay, but we're not talking about design so much, we're talking about color. So you can see how color is working in alignment. Is that the color itself is really acting as kind of the arrow, you know, to draw your eye here and, you know, to draw your eye back up here as well. So change in color, your eye is instantly drawn to it, and it is lining up elements, kind of showing you where to go. Okay, so does anybody see another design principle that might be at work in this poster? And I'm thinking particularly between these colors, so background, foreground, maybe even between background and this like light beam. Does anybody else have a guess as to what just one other design principle might be that's also coming out in this image? So think about it for just a couple seconds. Okay, so it looks like according to our chat box representatives, we have contrast, proximity, contrast, and alignment. Yeah, I was thinking contrast. I could probably be persuaded proximity as well, but I was thinking contrast overall, particularly with the color, because we have this really dark background, and then we have this kind of yellow-ish text, and then the moon, and even that light beam itself kind of coming together. So dark background, light on top is a good sense of contrast. And again, it's instantly drawing your eye, kind of leading you through what's being shown. And that's the thing, guys, which you probably remember as well. If there's one design principle that's showing up, usually they do not come alone to the party. So everybody, you know, tends to come along too. So if you push it and look at it enough, pretty much every piece of successful design does have some evidence of all the different design principles in it. So it's a nice thing, because it's kind of try for one, get them all, and it's good that way. Okay, so our final design principle is proximity. So proximity is all about grouping elements. So you put like elements with like elements, and just kind of creating these discrete, distinct groupings of things really helps you be able to scan important information and kind of skim a document to figure out, you know, what's necessary, what's the main event, that sort of thing. Okay, so here is an example of proximity. And you can see that in this poster, it's kind of broken up into kind of discrete chunks of information. So we have these, we have the top of her head, but we also have these kind of organic shapes kind of pouring out. Then we have the text down here. Then we have the image in the back. There's even this line kind of drawn around her face. So you can see that everything is kind of grouped together in a very kind of cohesive, tidy manner. And even though the poster itself looks very organic and kind of free and easy, like a soul sundae, perhaps. Even though it looks very free and easy, it's actually very calculated in its composition. And all of these different pieces really break up the poster into separate chunks of information so that you can instantly see what's most important. And then all the other elements are kind of like the backup singers to that main message, kind of coming together and creating the overall composition. So how color often works in proximity is evidenced by this kind of stripe that you can see here. So often people will put, well, designers will put their main message or their big message or something in a colored box or surround it by a colored shape, or just do something to kind of group it together using a background color. And then that background color will pop the words out and make the message just that much more clear. So proximity often used to kind of separate, segment out, and color then becomes kind of a background for it as well. So very cool. All right, and once again, you know, if we look at this, we could probably define all the different principles of design as well. Because like I said, if there's one, there's generally many as well. Okay, so that's going to conclude our basic overview of the discussion. So I'm going to actually go back into the discussion one more time, and we're just going to talk very briefly about how you might consider composing your discussion prompt. Or I'm sorry, your discussion response. Sorry, I'm reading and talking at the same time. Sometimes it works, but obviously not all the time. Okay, so you're going to choose your one poster. So you're going to take a screenshot of it. We're going to embed it as we went over before. And then when you're writing your own response, really try to describe how contrast or repetition was used or not used to create the overall impact. If you want to bring up alignment and proximity, that is great as well. So then also talk about what mood was created by the color choices. So why do you think the person who created this poster chose those colors? If you want to go back to some of the color psychology from week 1, since I think that's always super interesting, you can feel free to bring that in as well. You can also think about the color relationships in the poster shown. So if you want to just do the little exercise of what are these colors, how do they relate? So for example, in my poster, I would say analogous. Analogous is showing up with the yellow, with the green, with the kind of bluish, maybe kind of monochromatic because it's all built on the blacks and grays. So you could do that if you want to as well. So yeah, it's kind of open-ended, open-minded for what the discussion could be. The important thing is that you are choosing a poster and thinking about it, and then also writing a little bit of why you feel the designer chose to do what they did, what they were thinking, why the color relationships are what they are, and also how color and the principles are really coming together. Okay, so one final pop quiz before we jump into the assignment. You can just get your initial posting up there and then say, see a discussion, I'm out. Is that a true statement or a false statement? Discussion only requires you to enter once a week, true or false. And again, if you're here, you can type your answer. Or if you are watching via video, ask yourself what you think. Okay, we have a whole bunch of falses coming in. Yes. So don't let a C happen to you. Get into discussion and respond to 2 other people, and you will get an A, and it will be very easy. So make time to do it, basically. Okay. All right. So let's transition and talk a little bit now about the assignment that we have coming up for this week. Okay, so if you have peeked ahead at the assignment, you will see that it looks relatively simple. And you would be correct. It is actually, I think, perhaps the easiest assignment that we have in this class. So take advantage of that, get it done early, and then, you know, have a little mental headspace that you can maybe devote to your other class or to, you know, the crazy work hours I know that we all have. But yeah, so it's a fairly simple assignment. And basically what it's all about is applying different color creation pathways to an example logo. And then you're going to be working with this logo for the remainder of the course. So, you know, there's that as well. All right, so these three color pathways that we're going to talk about and then also look at applying in the assignment itself are RGB, CMYK, and PANTONE. So before we go too much into breaking down what these color pathways are and how they're created, let's again just do a little check-in. So do these look familiar? That would probably be the first question. And if they do, does anyone know what maybe which one is not like the other two? Maybe we'll kind of leave it at that. Any guesses there? Or which, okay, so looks like we have somebody's guessing number 3. I feel like that was a terribly worded question that I just did. But you actually got the right answer, so so that's good. At least we're tracking a little bit. Okay, so let's maybe just zoom out a little bit. So have you guys heard of one or more of these different color pathways? And that could be a yes or a no. So RGB, CMYK, or Pantone. And if you have, which one, so you can just type that in as well. And if you're watching via video, we miss you in live session. If you were here, you could actually type into the chat box too and participate. And let me tell you, it's slightly more fun probably than just watching this on video. Not that the video isn't fun, but interactivity is the way to go. All right, so let's see. All 3 I've heard of, 1 and 2, 1 and 2, all but the last. Okay, sounds good. So in the context of hearing about 1 and 2, can you identify where you tend to use the first color pathway? Any places where it tends to show up a lot, or where it tends to be known as the quote-unquote default setting if you are creating for this output. Okay, so we'll see if anybody has any guesses. Oh, it looks like somebody said web. Okay. See if anybody else has any guesses. And again, if you're watching via video, you know, guess where these things might show up. If you know, if you've heard of them before. Okay, internet, mobile. Yeah. All right, so the big thing I'm learning, and hopefully the big thing you're learning as well, is you guys have this. Like, you totally know these things, which is great because that means that instead of having to kind of create new knowledge pathways in our brains, hopefully we can just kind of build on ones that are there. They might have been dormant for a while, but they were there at one point, so, you know, things will hopefully be a bit easier. Okay, so first color palette or color pathway that we're going to talk about is this pathway called RGB. And basically what that stands for is red, green, blue. So RGB, easy to remember. And basically what RGB is color that's created with light rays. And basically if you're like, what? Color's made of light? It's really cool and it's really interesting, and it's also kind of abstracted, so we're not going to go over it much because we just don't have time in class. But if you do want to learn more about it, I would suggest that you Google, is color a light ray? And you will just learn lots of cool things. Your mind will be blown. You'll look at lots of crystals, and it's fabulous. So if you're curious, definitely pursue that curiosity. But yeah, so RGB color is color that's created with light rays. The important thing to know for us on a very practical note is that RGB is what you use for screen display. So if you have a mobile phone, if you have a laptop, if you have an iPad, the way that you're seeing color in those devices is by an RGB color pathway. And so when you design for those outputs, so if you are making a logo for the internet, if you are making an illustration for a website, if you are creating a headshot for a website or for a LinkedIn profile or something, you want to make sure that you are in the RGB color pathway, that you're designing that, because that is how it will be displayed in the end. So you need to be using colors that are created in those ways. Okay, so RGB design for screen. That's kind of at its most basic type thing. Okay, so here is our second color pathway, and this would be CMYK. So what CMYK is, it stands for, does anyone know what it stands for? Before I do the big reveal, any guesses? And you don't have to do all of them, but if you do happen to know. Okay, yeah, look at that. You guys know this too. Fabulous. Okay, so CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Fun fact, I think the K actually stands for key, not black, but we say black because it's easier. But I feel like that's kind of one of those like fun random facts of knowledge that you periodically pick up as a designer. But yeah, so what CMYK is that it's color actually created with physical pigments. So inks, paints, marker, anything that has a physical property to it that is not light, generally is a CMYK kind of creation, and what you use to represent that. So created for print is kind of the important thing. So if you are making something that is going to be physically printed, so a brochure, a poster, a billboard, a magazine, a book, a painting that's going to be printed on canvas, it is best to use a CMYK color pathway to create it, so that when it is actually printed, the colors are coming out in the same manner. Okay, so we have RGB for screen, we have CMYK for print, and then we have this kind of interesting outlier known as Pantone or spot color. So it seemed like the general vibe in the chat box was that Pantone was kind of a word that you had not heard, kind of moving through your life as a designer. I'm very curious, have you guys heard of spot colors? Is that anything that's entered into your your design vocabulary? So spot colors or Pantone, spot or Pantone. Okay, looks like we have a yes. We have 2 no's. Not too familiar. Okay. So basically what spot colors or Pantone colors are colors that are produced using pre-made ink formula. It's a specialty color, and because it's not, look at that. Because I have not run spell check on these slides, I misspelled guarantee, but that's okay. We won't read it too closely. But because it's not created by mixing different colors together, so differing proportions of R, G, or B, or differing proportions of C, M, Y, or K, it is guaranteed to be consistent no matter where in the world it is printed, because the color is pre-made. So when you're printing using CMYK, it is almost like the printer follows a recipe where they use like, a splash of C and a hint of M and like a cup of K or whatever. Whereas with spot colors, it comes kind of pre-baked, pre-mixed, and they just grab the spot color and they use that. Okay, so here's where it gets just a little confusing, but hopefully it will still kind of make sense. So spot colors are created with pigment. So it is an ink. It is a physical medium. And so because of that, it is in theory a CMYK color. However, it's a proprietary ink. It's a proprietary recipe, and it's a guaranteed color. So it's CMYK, but it's not CMYK in just traditional CMYK. Okay, so does that make sense? It has to be CMYK because it's physical stuff, but it isn't traditional CMYK. So it's confusing. I know it sounds weird, but just kind of get it in your heads that it's not created using RGB. It is CMYK, but it's a specialty. Okay, like the Starbucks green. Yep, exactly. So the reason that people use spot colors is because they are guaranteed to be consistent no matter where in the world they're printed. So logos are often designed using spot colors, and that's because whether you have your materials printed in Cincinnati or Singapore, if you're using a spot color, it doesn't matter because the color will always be consistent. If you don't use a spot color, your color will mostly be consistent, but it's not guaranteed. And so when you're designing logos, spot colors are really the way to go because it just guarantees that next level of, you can trust that if this gets produced, it will be the right one. You won't have to send it back, that sort of thing. Okay, so here's just a very helpful kind of visual. CMYK and spot are used for anything that is printed, that you can hold, a physical thing in your hand. And then RGB is for anything that's monitor oriented, anything that's produced in that manner. Okay, and then last but not least, the final output is what determines which way color is produced. So as you are creating things, as you are working with clients, just as you're going about your design process, it is so key to know how something is going to be produced because final output determines color pathway. So you need to know the final output so that you can design within that color pathway from the very beginning. Okay? All right, so let's jump now into assignment 2 to see what we have here. Okay, so quick pop quiz. We are all looking at my screen. We're looking at colors on my screen. How were these colors created? What's the color pathway, do you think? Is it RGB? Is it CMYK, or is it Pantone or Spot? Is the question. RGB, yeah, way to be, chat box team. Okay, quick question. Why can I only make an image black and white in Photoshop if it's in RGB and not in CMYK? I think it's because in CMYK, it's very difficult to have a true flat black. And so I think Photoshop probably will only let you do it in RGB because then you can get that true dark final undertone. That would be my guess. I actually didn't know that it wasn't possible to make an image in Photoshop in black and white in CMYK, but that would make sense to me because it's tricky to get black when you are printing things to get a true black. CMYK blacks often end up being like really dark muddy purples. And that's just because they're created by putting all the colors together. And so depending on kind of the fidelity or the trueness of the colors, that will determine, how black the black is. So And again, this is unfortunately something you never realize until you print something physically, and then you're like, huh, that doesn't look like how it looks on my screen. But then you say, okay, I'm a designer. How can I troubleshoot and make this a bit better? Okay, so let's go to the prompt to see what we are doing. So for this assignment, you're going to create 2 color themes for the AQUA Excursions logo, one utilizing 2 colors and the other utilizing 3 colors. So let me just get it out there initially. A color theme and a color scheme are basically the same thing. So if you're like, oh no, I don't know what a color theme is, just think scheme. So it's same deal, just 2 different letters, and you should be good. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is download the AQUA Excursions logo, which you can do here. And when you do that, it will automatically open up Illustrator for you. Huh, isn't that handy? Oh, there it is. Perfect. Okay, so here's the logo in black and white. And let's come back here to see what exactly we're doing. Excuse me. Okay, so create a new 8.5 by 11 Adobe Illustrator document. Okay, so it's going to want to open up a new document apparently when you click on that. But what you're going to do is create a new one. So File, New, and we're going to have it be 8.5 by 11. And that would be letter size. Let's see if I have one. And you can make it portrait or landscape, doesn't matter. And 1 artboard is all you need. So we're just going to hit create. Okay, so once we've done that, we are going to utilize Pantone colors to create 2 different color combinations that are effective solutions for the kayak industry. So we'll kind of just cycle back a little bit. If you read this background, which we won't do together, but I would encourage you to do, you'll learn a little bit about how to choose color palettes, how to choose color schemes, how to think about choosing them, etc. This is quite a bit to like discussion 1 with the discussion of color palettes in each of those different plays. So AQUA Excursions is a kayak company. They do adventure kayaking, I believe. And so they've charged you with creating a logo for them. So figuring out what colors might be good to use and what might be a good idea for them. So let me just say to you guys that like it's completely open. I've had students in previous classes do basically all colors of the rainbow. And I've been fully convinced because part 2 is, you just explaining your choices as to why you chose the colors you did. So don't feel like you're supposed to find the correct colors, and if you don't find them, I'm going to give you no points. No, I mean, it's all, it's very subjective. It's what you think of when you think of kayaking and water and that sort of thing. So think more about what colors you're combining as opposed to, what is the one correct set of colors, because there's not one. So it's, kind of what you want it to be. Okay, so we're going to use our Pantone colors to create 2 different color combinations that are effective solutions for the kayak industry. And this is important too. So one color combination is going to have 2 colors, and the other one is going to have 3 colors. So 1 2-color color scheme, 1 3-color color scheme, so kind of illustrated over here, okay? And this is important because I feel like it gets a little bit lost, but if we say it enough times, hopefully it won't be. Okay, so we're going to create 3 boxes. So Command-C, Command-V. And what I'm doing here is just, I'm going to create my color schemes in this way. And I'm going to grab these 2, Command-C, Command-V, and this is going to be my 2-color scheme. Okay, so we have 3 colors, 2 colors. Next thing we're going to do is find our Pantone colors to apply them to each of these boxes. So anybody have any guesses as to where my Pantone colors might be hiding out? If you are here, you can feel free to type it in the chat box. If you're watching via video, again, just guess, where might the Pantones be? Where do we keep those Pantones? What drawer are they in? Has anyone seen them? Okay, looks like we have window color. A very good guess. Window is the place we will go initially. Window swatches. Yes, exactly. So we're going to look at our swatches, much like we did for week 1 when we were bringing up our brights. So we're going to click here on our side panel, go to Open Swatch Library, and Color Books. This is very important. Color Books is where you find the Pantones. And then you can see here they all are. Okay, so you can choose any one of these books, in quotes, that you would like. So if you want to go with the neons, if you want to go with the metallics, if you want to go with the regular, it doesn't really matter for this assignment. Just kind of an explanation what these mean is basically how the colors look when they're physically printed. So coated means that it has kind of like a glossy cover to it. Uncoated means it's flat and matte. Metallic, again, is like metal. Neons are neons. And then premiums or solids or uncoated, these are just a little bit more vibrant. So that's kind of the difference here. If you ever have a chance to see a Pantone swatch book, it is a physical thing. It almost looks like paint swatches. You could even Google it and see it online. But it's really cool because you get to see what these colors are guaranteed to look at. And often when you're working on a real client logo project, one of your steps will be to get out the Pantone swatch book or go to a print shop and ask to borrow it for like an hour and choose your color that way, because then you can see it in its physical property. So if we were all together, we would get a book and pass it around. We're not, so we just have to talk about it in kind of nostalgic tones. But definitely something really cool to check out if you ever have the chance. Okay, so I'm going to go with, let's go with neons, pastels and neons coated. Where I am currently, it is May 21st and it's about 35 degrees and rainy. So I'm thinking like nice, good tropical colors. I want this to be like a Key West feel. I want it to be transportive. I want it to be warm. So I'm going to choose colors in that route. You guys can feel free to choose whatever you'd like, but yeah. Okay, so these are all of our Pantones. We can tell that they are spot colors because they have a little spot in the corner. Ha ha ha, isn't that great? And that literally is what that little spot means, is that it's a spot color. Whereas our regular swatches have nothing, they're just color. So these are slightly more special. Okay, so we're just gonna select our shape and make sure our fill is in front, and then just select colors. Ooh, that wasn't nearly as fun and exciting as I pictured, but that's okay. And maybe let's do this one. Okay, so this is my 3-color panel, or my 3-color theme, I should say. And then I'm gonna do a 2-color as well. Your 2-color can be 2 of your colors from your 3-color, or it can be something completely different. And I won't spend too much time doing this, but ooh, that's kind of cool. It's actually not very different though, so we'll do that. Okay, one final choice and then I'll stick with it. Ooh, that looks like an Easter egg. All right, so this is what we'll go for. Okay, so, and you guys can feel free to spend as much time as you want to on this. And it's really fun to just look at a couple of the different Pantone options because there are many out there, and it's just really, it's really cool to see it, and also to kind of see how they differ as well. Let's see, do our colors have to be complementary or analogous and so on? They can be whatever you want them to be. So there's no relationship dictated for this. So you can just kind of go with it. But I would encourage you, as you're putting these together, think about the color relationships that you are using, because maybe you do want to get out that color wheel from week one and say, I think I want to try this kind of relationship, because you will be writing 150 words about these. So if you can put into words things that you might be doing on a hunch, that's a good idea. So keep that in mind. Okay, so here's our 3 colors or 2 colors. So these are in Pantone colors. So what we want to do now is convert them to, well, we want to create a copy and then convert that copy to just regular CMYK, which would be also known as process. And excuse me, the reason that we want to do this is that even though Pantone colors are created using CMYK inks, it's not a one-to-one equivalent, so they won't look identical often because of that proprietary factor. And so it is good practice when you have a Pantone color that you're giving to a client because it's in something, to also provide them with the CMYK equivalents if they would like to use that in whatever they're producing. Because Pantone colors are a bit more expensive. So some clients like the idea of them but don't like to actually produce them. So it's good to try a color scheme in all color pathways just to make sure that it's as consistent as possible. Okay, so I copied and pasted everything. So next we're going to select all of our swatches in one set, and we're going to go to Edit, Edit Colors, and convert to CMYK. So again, select your 3 that you've copied and pasted, and then do Edit, Edit Colors, convert to CMYK, and see what happens. If you're like, huh, whole lot of nothing just happened, that's a good sign, because it means that there's not a huge difference between these colors. So most colors don't have a huge difference. Some colors, particularly if you're in the maroon, the blue, the purple arena, they have a pretty big difference when you convert, but it's usually darker colors, so you might not see anything. Okay, so again, we're going to select this, Edit, Edit Colors, convert to CMYK, click on it, and yeah, doesn't look like too much, which is good. Okay, so now we're going to take a quick detour, and I'm going to save this because I forgot to do that. Don't be like me and forget to save. But if you do forget to save, don't worry, you're not alone. Just do it at some point. Okay, so we did up to here. Note if the color has changed, okay? Open the provided logo in Illustrator, copy and paste the black and white logo into your file. Apply the CMYK values of each theme to the black and white logo you downloaded. Great. Okay, so we're going to get here. I'm going to select the whole thing. Command-C to copy. Command-V to paste. Hold down Shift, just make it slightly bigger. Copy, paste it. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do as our final step is put these colors into this logo. And so how we're going to do that is just basically how we did it in our color wheel, if you were following my instructions from week 1. And that's using our eyedropper tool, which is this guy right here. So again, we're going to select a shape, use the eyedropper and eyedropper the color to see our shape change. And you can distribute the colors as you would like. I would just ask that in the 3-color color scheme, you do use all 3 colors. So whatever that might look like. You can also come here to Object, Ungroup, and change the color of individual letters. And again, to do that, just select the letter, eyedropper, select the color that you want to change it to. So you might do that. So this is really your chance, guys, to play around with colors within the logo itself, to just kind of see what feels fun. And if you don't want to have a stroke at all, select everything, turn off the stroke. That's fine too. So whatever you feel like is an interesting design visually, whatever kind of feels nice with the colors that you're working on, kind of how it's all put together. Okay, so we're going to do the same deal here with the 2-color. Oops. Command Z to undo. Let's make it pink. Okay, so when you have this, you're about halfway, well, you're about 3/4 of the way done with the assignment, so I'm just going to save it. So pretty easy, right? You just pull out the colors. Well, you create your boxes, you copy paste, and then you convert things to CMYK, kind of step back, assess, and then grab your logo and drop your colors into different bits and pieces of it. And whatever you want to do is fine. You can split up the letters if you want to get rid of the fill altogether and just go with an outline, you could do that. Yeah, so it's completely up to you. Oops, wait, and I should have done this with Pantone. Sorry, that would be this guy. Or I'm sorry, the process, not the Pantone. Okay, so we're going to do File Save again. And then we're going to go to the final section of this, or the final part, I should say, of this assessment. And that's where you're going to write a 150 to 200 word rationale in Word that explains the reasons why you chose the colors in each theme and kind of what you were thinking. So if you're like, oh no, writing, this is 150 to 200 words, and I'm not even a super stickler on 150, so if you're at like 140, that's fine. And that's really not, you know, a lot of words overall, so hopefully it's not too stressful. Okay, so what you're going to do with this is, you know, basically I used the colors, and if you want to copy what I'm writing, that's fine. I don't know what colors I use though. I use the colors green, orange, and pink. Orange and pink in my first color scheme because, and then, you know, you fill in the blank. Why did you do what you did? Because I wanted to capture an island feel that was light and breezy. I also wanted the color scheme to feel very warm and inviting. Okay, I use the colors, I would say green and coral, maybe we'll call that, and coral in my second color scheme because I wanted to, once again, have a tropical feel to my color scheme. I also, again, wanted the colors to feel very warm and inviting. Okay, so I'm currently at 76 words. So I need about 70 more. So you, once you're at this point, you can kind of assess how many more words you need and then what other information you might want to put in. Let me think here. I use colors. That was very warm and inviting. I feel like these are, so you could tie into what are the emotions of the color. Think back again to week 1. These are very happy colors that will make the kayak company feel like it is a happy adventure for people to take. Look at that, 101, okay? I feel like these are fresh and vibrant colors and will make people who are coming to the kayak company feel excited about what sort of adventure they might take. Okay, both color schemes, oops, to me feel like good choices for the client. So again, weigh in on what you think, and look at that 143, I'll take it. So, you know, kind of see this is a good model. If you are a little hesitant about writing or you're not feeling like, oh, I really know what to do, this is, you know, something that you could potentially do if you would like to pattern your written reflection after my own. So, you know, take that if it's helpful, or, you know, if it's not helpful, feel free to leave it as well. Okay, so we're just going to save this as a document, DES 114, assignment 1, or assignment 2, first last, okay. And when you are all finished, we are going to create a folder. We're going to put both of our files in it. We are going to zip our folder, and then we're going to turn it in. So let's just do a quick, save this as a PDF quickly. So file, save as, format, PDF, and save, and save. Okay, so let's quickly go over how to create a folder. Okay, so we're going to come up here to File, New Folder, and you'll see here it is. It says Untitled, so I'm going to do Assignment 2, my last name there. Okay, and then we're going to find our document that we created. So here's my first one, and I'm going to just drag and drop and let go. And where's my second one? There it is. Drag, drop, let go. And then I'm going to click on my folder just once, and I'm going to go to File, Compress. So this is officially how you zip. It's called the compression. So let go. And then you should see something with a .zip extension. And so this .zip is what you're actually going to upload for your assignment for this week. So, and within that file should be your rationale as well as your color scheme. Okay? So that is assignment 2. So super easy. You get to play with some different color schemes and a logo, see kind of how they might play out together, what they might look like, and yeah, you get to be the person who chooses. You have all the right answers, so you can figure out what you would like to do there. So if you're watching this, or even if you are here and you have any questions, please feel free to let me know, and I'd be happy to kind of break it down further, work with you step by step, or any of that sort of thing. Otherwise, have some fun, enjoy looking at the colors, and really looking forward to seeing what you come up with for each of your different color schemes. All right, so with that, let's jump back in and now talk just a little bit about assessment 2, and also jump into a demo for that as well. Okay, so for assessment 2, you are actually going to be creating a poster for the kayak company to just kind of help promote them as well. If you're like, oh my gosh, this sounds really big. Why is this the assessment? Why is this not the assignment? Here are 3 tips that will hopefully make this a whole lot more manageable. Key thing about a poster, less is more. Literally, guys, you need like 3 things on this poster, so it should not take you a ton of time to do. And if you are feeling frustrated and just piling more and more stuff on it, use that as a sign to maybe like step back and see if what you're doing is really effective or if it's just kind of making it more complicated for everybody. So posters are designed to promote an event, to promote an idea, to promote a place or thing or something like that. And so because they are designed for promotion and because they often exist in very busy environments, so think street corners, storefronts, walls of dwellings, all that kind of stuff, posters have to be designed in almost like mini billboards so that you can really get the message across quickly and easily. So 3 poster design tips. Less is more. Less elements, less stuff. Always much more because it's much easier to engage with. Number 2, find your focal point. So what is the most important thing on your poster? Make it biggest. Make it centrally located. Make it in a contrasty color so people want to look at it. And then number 3, design for yourself. So we are all humans. We all have human perception. So as you're designing, constantly ask yourself, does this make sense? Would I look at this? Can I read this? 3 questions that seem really easy, but very easy to forget. So constantly keep on kind of checking in with yourself in these different ways. Okay, so let's jump into the assessment. Oops, that's not the assessment. There it is. To see what we're doing. Okay. All right, so using the strongest, most viable color theme from your logo assignment this week, create a poster that will promote AQUA Excursions Sunset Paddle Adventure. So you must incorporate your final color AQUA Excursions logo, tightly cropped in CMYK. So this is what you created for your assignment. Up to 2 images from this zip file, Sunset Paddle Images. And then this is the headline copy, Sunset Paddle Adventure. Body copy, sign up for this unique experience. Visit AQUA Excursions for more information. Okay, 3 things you must do, or you must have, and then 2 images and a logo. So 5 things altogether is all you need. All right, so we're going to be doing this in InDesign. So we're going to be taking a little break from Illustrator. So I'm going to open up my InDesign as we're talking. And we're going to have our images in CMYK, images in correct resolution, all spot colors converted to CMYK, which we have from our logo. Live area applied correctly, bleeds and trim, document packet for print, etc., etc. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is download my images to see what I have to work with. Yeah, so when you're working with a client, they often say, hey, you're my designer, I love you, I trust you, only use these 5 images that I'm giving you. So, so this is very real world. So it's good to kind of know what we have to work with. And know what's here. So let's see, looks good. I just did a Command I to actually look at the image, just because I wanted to see what color it was. Okay. All right, so here's a pro tip. You will probably have to convert these images to CMYK in Photoshop, and that's very easily done. So I'm going to just show you how to do that, and then we'll jump into InDesign. So when you're looking at these images, remember you need to use no more than 2, I believe. Oh, up to 2 images, yes, no more than 2. I would actually recommend, unless you have a really good reason to use 2, that you actually just use 1, because I feel like they're kind of difficult images to combine, but you guys are surprising me with your cool creativity, and it's much more than mine. So, if you have a good idea to combine multiples, maybe even 3, I would be okay with that. But, if you're just like, I'm barely staying above water, all you really need is one image, so that will make your life much easier, perhaps. Okay, so I'm going to select an image. I'm going to hold down Control, click once, go to Open with Adobe Photoshop. And again, the reason I'm doing this is just I want to convert the image color to CMYK, and it's most easily accomplished in Photoshop. So you could convert all the images if you want to, or you could be like me and say, I just want to use this, so that's all I'm doing. Totally fine. Okay, so when we have our image open, we're just going to go to Image, Mode, CMYK. Okay, it's going to give you an alert. Perfect. You'll see it now. It's the CMYK. Just go to File, Save. And that's as easy as it gets. Okay, so we're going to come to InDesign. And 11 by 17 is our size. Okay, so we're going to create a new document. Okay, so width 11 inches, height 17 inches. Okay, this is where everybody watch, because this is something we haven't done before. We are going to add a bleed. Right, let's turn off facing pages. We are going to have a bleed, and basically what a bleed is kind of this little box that's slightly larger than your image. And the reason that you want to use a bleed is that, it's slightly larger than your document. When printers go to trim things, sometimes they're not fully accurate. And so if you make your images slightly larger than they need to be, you will always ensure that when they're trimming, they don't accidentally trim too much. So it's just kind of like a safety net is the bleed. And I say a little bigger, it's basically a 1/4 inch altogether, so it's not a lot. So kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so you want to do 0.125 IN. So if it's helpful to take a screenshot of what my new document window looks like, that's even a good idea. So 0.125 IN, click here on the little link thing, then click Create. And here is here's your document. And you can see here I have this little red, and this is just the bleed that I put in. Okay, so once you have that, we're going to place our image on the background. We're going to paste our logo in. We're going to put our text in, and we're basically going to call it a day. So to get my image in, File, Place. And let's find my assessment images, kayak sunset, open. Okay, click once, and there it is. And we want to make sure that we're putting it to the bleed line. So we want to drag the frame for our image to that bleed line. And then I'm going to get my direct selection tool, click on my image, and then drag my image so that it's just a little bit bigger than my bleed line. So remember, we don't want it to just be the size of the 11 by 17. We want it to go all the way to that bleed. So you're going to have to do just a bit of adjusting to kind of get it to fit. Okay, looks good. Looks good to me. All right, next thing we're going to do is grab one of our logos. So whichever one you liked more, copy. And literally, guys, just select it, Command C, Command V into InDesign. And then if you want to make it bigger, do whatever you want. Think about your contrast here, placing it on your image. If you want to put like a box behind it so it gets even more, so you have even more contrast, that's fine. I actually don't even think I need this, but if you feel like it would be helpful for you, let's just object, arrange, bring to front. So it's on top of the, so you could do something like that. You could come to properties, just like in Illustrator, you could dial down the opacity if you want to. That's kind of cool. Okay. All right, so we have our image check, we have our logo check. Next thing, we're going to grab our headline, Sunset Paddle Adventure, highlight it, copy, come back in here, take our type tool, click and drag to make a text box, paste our headline in. Okay, so I'm going to say, and then we're going to dial it up in size, as well as change up the font. I'm going to say, unless you have a really good reason, I think everybody should have their sunset, let's make this 100 to see what that looks like, should have their words Sunset Paddle Adventure be the biggest thing on their screen, be the biggest thing on their poster, because this is kind of the most important part of the poster. This is kind of the headline that you want to draw people's attention to, make them look, that sort of thing. I kind of like it. I think I really like it, actually. Let's see if there's just one more space there. Okay, so Sunset Paddle Adventure, you can play around with the type if you want to. Okay. And then sign up for this unique experience, etc., etc. Put that in a new text box. And we're going to make this much more readable. So I'm going to make it in Myriad Pro bold and just dial it up. And I made it, oops, it's unhyphenated. I made it centered for 1, so I'm going to keep everything centered. And my logo itself is centered. So think back to the discussion of design principles that we had with discussion, and make sure you're putting those as well into your, put a period there. You're putting those as well into your little paragraph and your poster. So I have a strong sense of center alignment, so everything's kind of leading one spot to the next. Okay, and then we have one more piece of information. Visit aquaexcursions.com for more information. Okay, so here's a pro tip. I feel like the Sunset Paddle Adventures is kind of the most important thing. I would say that the second most important thing might be the website, where you actually can do all of this. So make sure that you're not shortchanging the website. I've had many students in the past put it like at the very bottom, and it's just really difficult to see. So, and then, you know, we talk about it and it gets moved and such. But from the beginning, you know, kind of think, how can people find where they need to go? Because we do live in an era where if you don't have a website, you kind of don't have legitimacy. So for a company, you want to showcase the website as much as possible so that it really kind of stands out to people. And those birds are kind of a pain. So I'm just going to skew my image slightly so that they're not right behind the text. Okay, visit AQUA Excursions for more information. Maybe I want it to be this fun blue color so it'll have more, oops, that didn't work. And again, you know, this is how do you figure out what works, what doesn't? You just give it a try and then you assess. Ooh, that didn't work either. All caps, would that work? Maybe I don't need to do anything. No, it's difficult to read. Okay, I think we can just leave it at that. Maybe put a period here. All right, so try it being white. Oh yeah, let's try that. Actually, that might work because then it would tie back to the headline. Yeah. I could dig it. I think that could work. Let me get rid of this box. All right, so when you are all finished, like look at guys, literally this took me not long at all. And it's effective because it's promoting the message of these Sunset Paddle Adventures, but it's not over the top. There's not a ton of stuff. It's 1, 2, 3 text boxes, a picture, and a copy pasted logo from Illustrator. So hopefully it feels like it's fairly manageable and not, you know, like something that's going to take forever and then some. And just remember, guys, keep it simple. Keep it very clear so that people can easily see this and know what they need to do, know what's important, kind of know what you're trying to draw their attention to. Okay, so when you're all finished, we're going to come to File, Save As, and save it. Okay, and then last but not least, we are going to come up here and actually package it. So to do that, we're going to go to File and Package. So basically what packaging in InDesign does is it gathers all of the bits and pieces used in the file. So it gathers images, it gathers fonts, it gathers color swatches, it puts them all into a folder. And then if you were to actually produce this using a physical printer, so to send it to print, you would send the printer that folder, and then they could have everything that they needed to assemble your document, to open it, and then to actually physically print it. So a packaged file is a file that is ready to go to print. It's a package of file elements. Okay, so we did File, Package. We're just going to click Package. Take note to where it is packaging to. Mine's going to my desktop. Click Package. Click OK. Putting all the pieces into the package. And then let's look at our package just to make sure it's good. Okay, so here it is. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, so here, and I can double click. And then you can see here are the different package elements within the package itself. And so for this assessment, you're going to select your package folder, go to File, Compress, and then you'll see here's your compressed, your zipped file, wherever it is. There it is, I think. And then this is what you're going to, again, turn in for the assessment. So just like the assignment, you turned in the zip folder. Same deal with the assessment. You're going to turn in your zipped folder as well. Okay, so when you're all finished, yeah, you should be good. All right, well, as usual, guys, if you have any questions about anything presented, anything that we went over, etc., you can feel free to let me know. But otherwise, good luck with the assignment, with the assessment. Looking forward to seeing you in discussion this week. And yeah, hopefully you have some fun choosing some color palettes, playing with some Pantone, and then taking what you've created and actually putting it into layout in the poster itself. So just a couple of reminders, we do have another multi-session happening on Wednesday. Or if you would like to schedule time with me to work one-to-one, I would be totally open. So just reach out, let me know. If you haven't turned in anything from week 1 or something from week 1, or you want to resubmit for week 1, super open to that. Late work is fine. So that would work for me as well. But yeah, otherwise, hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and looking forward to seeing what you come up with. All right, thanks, guys.